Hi, it's Ursula from ursula-smith.com, and I am back with the window cling film. I posted about this before, and I used it with a regular die cut from Tim Holtz and turned it into a stencil, and it worked great. And that was literally like 2.5 years ago. It's 2025 now, and I finally am getting around to cutting it on my Silhouette. So I'm gonna have in my associated blog post, I'll have the settings, but basically I use the Silhouette setting right out of the box for frosted vinyl, and it worked perfectly. I didn't have to tweak anything. I just used the regular settings that came with the program, Silhouette Studio. And I probably will intersperse a video where I show it cutting. But in any event, it looks like it worked well. The only thing is I did have a little bubble here when I was laying it down onto the cutting mat. So just be aware and look for that. I wasn't really paying that much attention. The other thing is, I will say my mat was not as sticky as it normally is, and so I really needed the painter's tape to hold it down. But let me just go to where I can see something. So the shapes really just kind of pull out pretty well. It's gonna take me a while to weed out the particular design. I don't know if you can see that. That was my test. It's just a little star, and it just popped out great. This is a scroll pattern I designed. I've been through a few iterations of it, and I finally remembered, so this is a tip for you to remember to weed out all the internal parts. So say this had like a little dot in the middle. It's, lots of little pieces that just make the cutting harder. And B, when you're making a stencil, anything that's internal doesn't stick around, right? It pops out with the piece itself. So I just weed out all the internal parts. If I don't, and if I want to keep them, then I have to kind of break it into two parts. I think I have a blog post on that, but I'm not positive. If I don't, then I'll just add in that information into the blog post. But I am going to go off, weed this thing, and we'll see what it can do. Okay, I have started to weed, and I wanted to see if I just pulled it back, what would happen. And some of the shapes are staying behind. You can kind of see the frosted pieces. Not all of them, but it just means that if I'm gentle, I may be able to kind of weed as I pull, and there's just less things I have to go in with my tweezers. So anyway, that may work for you, and just a lot less tedious. So when this is done, I will be back. Okay, just so that you can see, just pulling it weeded out quite a bit. I probably lost a lot because of that bubble in the middle, and there are some things like that little one where, it was kind of half up. But for the most part, I got a lot up just by pulling gently. And this is such a hard stencil. I forgot, as I was weeding, I realized, oh yeah, I have a different iteration of this where I made the spacing like these teeny little veiny type things. I just spread them apart more, so those were a little bit bigger. So I just made it, because I used to cut this out of Yupo paper. And so this is a really good test for this stuff because, again, it's sticky. So this is stuck down to my mat, and it's making it easier to weed. But I think what's going to happen, hopefully, is when I put this down on cardstock, it will stick to the cardstock. And spraying through it or inking through it will just work better. So again, I'll go off and finish the weeding. You can still see I still have sections of it. But I was surprised at how well it pulled off. So, I mean, I love this stuff. So when it's done, I will be back. Okay, I didn't want to have you watch me do all of the weeding, but again, as I was doing it, I realized I should probably show you. So now this is a big piece. It's all interconnected. So I kind of have to be careful, but that stickiness is helping. And it really, that just pulled off so nice. Again, I think the parts in the middle are going to be a little trickier because, there was a bubble there, but let's try. So this is one. So that's a teeny tiny piece. And so it looks like what might have happened in the bubble is it didn't cut, all the way to the edge of the design. So I'm going to probably have to kind of figure out where is the end and then just kind of hold it down and pull it. So again, when you're setting up, I think it's going to be critical. I used a kind of roller thing to try and get the paper, flat onto the cutting surface, but clearly I missed a spot. So anyway, I will now go off and finish cutting, but you can see, especially where, it was not in the bubble. If I can get my tweezers under it, there we go. In general, it comes up pretty easily. I'm having trouble figuring out where the shape, there it is. So again, these are so fine that, I kind of have to be a little careful, but it pulls up pretty well. I'm psyched. All right, now I will be back after I finish. All right, so I have completely weeded this piece, and I wasn't really paying attention when I was picking the design to do this test with. This particular stencil, I've done this before, and I just always realize there's so many pieces that, I should have made, I don't know if you can see, this is like all one piece. I probably should have connected this, made this a separate piece and this a separate piece. I feel like I did that in one spot, or it, just happened to overlap, and when I did a weld, it fixed the issue. But you can see as I'm picking up, I have to be very careful because there's so many fine little parts that, I could generally easily rip. This stuff is pretty strong, so it seems, I missed that weeding. So it seems like, it's still going to work, even though this is probably not the best design. But you can see, now there's a couple of spots where I had that bubble, and so I just kind of ripped rather than cutting, I just kind of ripped, and whatever, it's not going to be the greatest. There's another piece I missed. But in any event, I'm going to go off and try and set this up to use as a stencil on paper, and we'll see how it works and whether it rips, coming off the paper, because that will be the next test. Here's the part with the bubble. But in any event, I'll get all that set up, and then we can give that a shot. Okay, I am back, and I am going to start out with just the plain white kind of junkier cardstock. In the last video that I used the window screening, whatever the stuff is called, I found that it stuck to the not as good paper. Oh, looks like I missed a spot. You know what? I'm going to lift this up. Okay, so it's not sticking dry. So one tip I will give you is I try to make my stencils that I'm going to use for a particular size. In this case, it's the A2, 4 by 5.25 inches. A little bit bigger so that I can move it around in case I have trouble weeding, which is just what happened. And then, oh my God, it's been so long since I've done my Distress Oxide Resist. I'm forgetting colors. So I am just going to try Evergreen Bow, however you say it, and see if once this is wet, if I can still peel it off the paper. Ideally, I probably would let it dry with the stencil, but I know I had trouble the last time. So I'm just going to spritz through. Oh, did I miss a spot? Looks like I missed a spot there. Okay, pay attention to your reading, people. And then I always, so again, this is non-porous. One of the thoughts, if you watch my original video, I thought this was going to be like rice paper and it would absorb, and I was going to use it for a totally different purpose. But it is not, and so it does not absorb the inks, and so I just use another piece of cardstock to lift off that extra ink. And so then obviously you get kind of a twofer, and that was a lot of ink. So all right, so now is the moment of truth to see if I can peel back. See, and this is what happened the last time. It kind of stuck. And this design is so intricate with very fine details. So I do have to be careful. So maybe what happened the last time, this seems to be peeling up okay. So maybe what happened the last time is it, I might have left it a little bit too long on the paper, and that's why it's stuck. Because that seemed to peel off okay. I mean, even on the silicone mat, it kind of sticks, and you gotta just be careful with all those little pieces. So I am going to try and lay it down where on my desk, which is completely full. And then, as usual, I come over the top with a plain, so that was Distress Oxide, and now I always come over with a plain Distress Spray Stain. And I'm looking for my browns, and I am failing. Oh, there's Fossilized Amber or Frayed Burlap. I'm going to go with Frayed Burlap. I'll do one of each. How about that? So then I just spritz over, and as the spray stain dries, it oxidizes the Distress Oxide, and it kind of looks like a resist, especially with the darker colors, because then the colors show through. I'm not sure I'm gonna love that Fossilized Amber, so I'm just gonna go in with a little bit, and you can see it already kind of showing through. And it changes color. It's just a really cool, fun way to work. And it's kind of a little bit serendipitous. You never quite know what you're going to get. And you're going to go through a lot of inks, because I basically go through and cover the whole thing. I may come back in over the top with, some other drops and drips. I'm wondering if if I do something like salvage patina, what that's going to do. We'll try it. Okay, so I'm going to go off and let that dry, and we shall see what it looks like then. Okay, I am back, and the inks have dried. I have a little piece of the, oh, and then I just got stain. All right, so I should have cleaned up, but I'm going to come back over because this is so dry. I mean, so light, sorry. So, okay, so that's what happened. So that must have been what happened before, is I let the stencil dry too long, and it stuck a little bit more. Oh, here's another piece. And I got more ink. Yeah, and so that's what happened the last time it did that rip. Okay, so if you're going to use the cheap cardstock, definitely make sure that your window cling is removed before it dries. So in any event, this dried too light personally for my taste, so I was planning on going over it anyway with this dark walnut stain. And so that will continue to oxidize the Distress Oxide ink. And you just get more contrast. So it kind of depends on how the Distress Oxide is going to change when it is covered in water. And it can change differently depending on the spray stain that you bring over the top. So on this other one, I'm going to try Chip Sapphire and see if I get, you know, more contrast but a different look, which it does look like it is going to stain that back, that Distress Oxide. So the Distress Oxide was the same color because this was basically the cleanup. And so coming over it with the brown, you get more of a duller oxidation color. This seems like it's going to be a little bit bluer. Let's, if I have any greens. Oh, my inks are all getting low. That's sad. All right, let's just try some peeled paint. So maybe I'll do a little in this corner. And then maybe a little bit. And again, when it dries, I will be back. I think I'm also going to go off. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup so I don't get ink all over everything. And I'm going to try the same technique like I did in the last one with the Tim Holtz, the Ranger Craft paper cardstock. So I'm going to go clean up, put these aside to dry, and I will be back. Okay, I'm back, and I have a piece of the craft cardstock from Ranger's line, and I'm trying to find the Distress Oxide. So I'm going to try and do the same combination that I did with the first go round of this window cling. I just cut it with using a die cut from Tim Holtz and used it as a stencil. And it was Worn Lipstick was the Distress Oxide that I used. So I'm going to come through. There's a little piece that's not sticking. I'm going to spray through using the Worn Lipstick. And this is cool because it changes color when it's oxidized to almost a blue. And I can't remember if I've done this same combination on plain white cardstock. So I'm going to, instead of doing the craft as the inverse, I'm going to just use plain cardstock and see if we get that same effect. And this is just the cheapy kind. It's not a lot of times I'll come through, if I'm using the craft cardstock, I'll come through and I want white I'll do the same thing with the regular, or Ranger line Tim Holtz cardstock in white. So I have things that I do not want to get ink on sitting on my desk. So I got to be careful. I'm just trying to get up more of the ink if I can. Okay, so that will be the inverse. And as I go along, I keep... Oh, no, you know what that is? That's color from the previous version. I knew that there were still remnants of the previous color there, and I just was like, whatever. So you can see the ink really doesn't dry on this window cling film. So, and on the craft cardstock, it seems to pull up okay. Again, it's still fragile just because of the design, but it's pretty good to pick up. So I am going to let these dry. Actually, no, I'm going to spray with the spray stain. I mean, I could come back later when it's dry, but I've got time now. So I'm going to do a combination of frayed burlap. So I think that's what I've used before, is frayed burlap, but I am running out. So let's see if I can make it. And then maybe on the white, I'll go through with the walnut stain. And the pink will start to oxidize. The Distress Oxide will start to oxidize. And again, I kind of call it the Distress Resist because you can see it start coming through that dark ink. But even if I used water, it still would oxidize as well. So, and this on the white, it looks like it's almost oxidizing gray, so that's interesting. And that isn't even starting to show through yet. So I will say the craft cardstock does seem to have like a coating or so on it. And so it does do things differently than the plain cardstock. In fact, I'm wondering if I do have, and I've done this in other videos, I do have a craft cardstock that I got on Amazon that cuts really well on the Silhouette, my Silhouette Curio. And I'm trying to rack my brain. I haven't watched that video in a while, whether that was the cardstock that I actually used rather than the Tim Holtz. But in any event, we will see when this dries how it resists and what color it turns out to be. And when that happens, I will be back. So just one more thing. I'm looking at this. I really kind of like the way that's going. But again, just like I tried the darker, I think I tried Chip Sapphire. On the other color, I'm going to try a little bit, maybe in this corner. Or this side. Maybe I'll do the whole side, and just see the difference with the plain walnut stain, and adding the blue over the top. And again, when it all dries, I will be back. Okay, so the two original pieces that I sprayed with the stencil have dried, and I like it much better bringing the darker color over. So sometimes you just need to play around a little bit with, especially with the spray stains that you're bringing on top of the Distress Oxides, and you just play around to see how you can get a better contrast. So if you're not looking for super contrasting designs, then you could have gone with what I had before, but I personally like to see the Distress Oxides show through. So again, this was actually it's this way. This was the original through the stencil, and then this was the mop-up. So, and I brought the blue over the top. I really kind of like that look too. So I like the way that came out. So I definitely am going to use that material for stencils from now on. Worked great. So then here were the other two. So this is the craft cardstock, and this originally was worn lipstick, so it was originally pink, and I should have just sprayed and kind of left some of it pink. I always forget that. When I first started, that's kind of the way I did it, and I liked that pink and blue. So I obliterated this with the, I can't remember if I did the walnut stain or the frayed burlap, but I obliterated the whole thing, and so all the pink, you could just kind of see hints of it, but the pink all went blue. So anyway, still pretty. And then this was the mop-up, and I kind of like the way it was oxidizing, kind of going white, and then on this side I brought that chip sapphire, like I used in the previous one, over the top. So this is bluer on this side than this is. So anyway, like I said, I really like those results. The cling, or I keep calling it window cling or whatever. It's like I forget what they call it. It's like rice paper window screening, I believe, is the actual name for it. I'll link it in the blog post. But in any event, I will keep using it because I love it as a stencil material. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you next time.